After my surgery, I woke up to find my entire family arguing over my will right beside my bed. Hi everyone! Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together, we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. The last thing I remember before going under was my daughter's face. She was holding my hand, squeezing it tight, and her eyes were wet with tears she was trying not to shed. The anesthesiologist was asking me to count backward from 10, and I got to 7 before everything went dark. I thought about that face, those tears, as they wheeled me into the operating room. I thought about how lucky I was to have a family who cared, who would be there when I woke up. I had spent the week before the surgery preparing for every possibility, making sure everyone would be taken care of no matter what happened. The surgery was supposed to be routine, a mass in my abdomen that needed to be removed. The doctors said it was probably benign, but they needed to get it out before it caused more problems. Still, any surgery that requires general anesthesia carries risks. I'm 58 years old, not ancient, but not young either. My body has been through a lot. I wasn't afraid of dying, not really. What scared me was the idea of leaving my family unprepared, of having loose ends that would burden them. So I spent hours making sure everything was in order. I updated my will, organized all my financial documents, wrote letters to each of them just in case. I wanted them to know how much I loved them, how proud I was of each of them, how they had made my life meaningful. My family is everything to me, always has been. I have 3 children, Sarah, 42, my oldest, and the one I've always been closest to. Michael, 39, my son who struggled but eventually found his way. And Rebecca, 35, my baby, though she hates when I call her that. Then there's my sister Linda, 55, who I've been supporting since her divorce 10 years ago. My brother Tom, 61, who has always been more of a taker than a giver, but is still my brother. And various nieces, nephews, in-laws, who have drifted in and out of my orbit over the years. I built a good life. After my husband died 15 years ago, I threw myself into work and managed to build a successful consulting business. I own my house outright, a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial that I bought when Sarah was just a baby. I have savings, investments, a rental property. I'm not wealthy by any means, but I'm comfortable, secure, and I've always shared that security with my family. When Sarah's marriage fell apart 7 years ago, I paid for her divorce lawyer. It cost me $40,000, but I couldn't watch her stay trapped in a relationship with a man who drank too much and had a temper. She moved back home with me for 2 years, with her daughter Emma, and I never asked for rent. I just wanted them safe. Michael had a rougher path. He got into drugs in his 20s, and I spent a fortune on rehab programs. 3 different facilities over 5 years. The last one finally stuck. He's been clean for 8 years now, has a steady job, a small apartment. I still help him with his rent sometimes when money gets tight. I co-signed his car loan because his credit was shot from his using days. Rebecca went to an expensive private college because she got into her dream school. State school would have been fine, but I saw how much she wanted it, how hard she'd worked. So I took out a loan and paid for all 4 years. She graduated with no debt while her friends were drowning in it. She's a teacher now, doesn't make much money, so I still help her out. Her student loans would have been crushing. My sister Linda lost everything in her divorce. Her husband cleaned out their accounts and left her with nothing. She was 55 with no job experience because she'd been a stay-at-home mom for 25 years. I paid for her to go back to school, helped her get a certification in medical billing. I gave her money every month while she was training, paid her rent, bought her groceries. She's working now, but the job doesn't pay well, so I still supplement her income. Tom has borrowed money from me more times than I can count. Business ventures that always fail. investment opportunities that never pan out. I stopped lending him money 5 years ago and just started giving it to him because I knew I'd never see it back. It seemed kinder than the fiction that he'd repay me. I don't say any of this to brag or to make myself sound like a martyr. I say it because this is what family does. You help each other, you show up, you share what you have because you love them and because you know they'd do the same for you if the situations were reversed. At least, that's what I believed. The night before my surgery, I had everyone over for dinner. All of them, crowded into my dining room around the table that's been there for 30 years. I made lasagna, Sarah's favorite, and garlic bread and salad. Rebecca brought wine. Michael brought flowers, sweet yellow roses from the grocery store. We ate and laughed, and I looked around the table at all these faces I loved. Sarah told stories about Emma, who was away at college now. Michael talked about a promotion he might get at work. Rebecca complained about her principal, but in that funny way she has where even complaints sound charming. Linda and Tom were quieter, but they were there. That's what mattered. After dinner, when everyone was lingering over coffee and dessert, I cleared my throat. I want to talk to you all about tomorrow, I said. The table went quiet. Sarah reached over and took my hand. The surgery is routine, I continued. The doctors aren't worried. But I'm not stupid. I know there are always risks with anesthesia, with any surgical procedure. So I've made sure everything is in order. My will is updated. All my financial information is organized. My lawyer has copies of everything. Mom, don't talk like this, Rebecca said, her voice tight. Honey, I have to. I need you all to know that if something happens— Nothing's going to happen, Michael interrupted. But if it does, I said firmly, I want you to know that I've taken care of everything. You won't have to worry about legal messes or financial confusion. It's all clear, all documented, and I've made sure each of you is provided for. Sarah's grip on my hand tightened. We don't care about that stuff, Mom. We just want you to be okay. I smiled at her, my responsible oldest child who had always been my rock. I know, sweetheart, but I'm your mother. It's my job to take care of you, even from beyond the grave if I have to. It was supposed to be a joke, a way to lighten the mood. A few people smiled weakly, but the heaviness lingered. I've left the house to the three of you, I said, looking at my children. You'll split it equally. Same with my savings and investments. There's enough that you'll each be comfortable, not rich, but comfortable. Linda, Tom, I've left you each something too. Enough to give you some security. Mom, please, Sarah said, tears in her eyes now. Can we not do this tonight? We have to do it tonight, baby. Tomorrow I'll be in surgery, and who knows when I'll be coherent enough to have this conversation after. I need to say this now. I looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes. I love you all so much, every single one of you. You've made my life worth living. Being your mother, your sister, your aunt, it's been the greatest privilege of my life. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that. There were tears then, real tears, and everyone came around the table to hug me. We stood in a cluster, all of us wrapped around each other, and I felt so full of love I thought I might burst. This was my family. These were my people, and I was theirs. That night, after everyone left, I lay in bed and thought about the surgery. I wasn't afraid anymore. How could I be afraid when I had so much love surrounding me? If something went wrong, if I didn't wake up, at least I'd be leaving behind people who cared about me, people who loved me as much as I loved them. I fell asleep feeling peaceful, grateful, blessed. The morning of the surgery was a blur. Sarah drove me to the hospital at 5:30 in the morning. We didn't talk much, just sat in comfortable silence, her hand occasionally reaching over to pat my knee. Michael and Rebecca met us at the hospital, both of them looking tired and worried. The pre-op process took forever. Paperwork, questions, nurses taking vitals. They put in an IV and gave me something to relax. The world got soft and fuzzy around the edges. The surgeon came in to explain the procedure one more time. I nodded along, understanding maybe half of what he said through the haze of pre-surgery medication. And then they were wheeling me away, and Sarah was walking beside the gurney, holding my hand, and the last thing I saw before they took me into the operating room was her face. Her beautiful face, crying but trying to smile. "I love you, Mom," she said. "I love you too, baby," I managed to say, though my tongue felt thick. And then the anesthesiologist was there, telling me to count backward from 10, 10, 9, 8, 7, nothing. I don't know how long the surgery took. Time ceased to exist in that chemical darkness, but eventually, slowly, consciousness started to return. It came in waves, awareness flickering in and out like a dying light bulb. Sound came back first. Beeping machines, distant voices, footsteps in hallways. Then sensation. Pain, dull and distant, like it was happening to someone else. Dry mouth, heavy limbs, and then voices. Close, right next to me. "Don't see why you should get more just because you're the oldest." The voice was familiar. Rebecca, my youngest daughter. But her tone was harsh, aggressive in a way I'd never heard before. "I'm not saying I should get more," Sarah's voice responded, tight with frustration. "I'm saying that Mom always intended for me to have the house. We've talked about it." When? When did she say that? Multiple times over the years. She knows I'm the one who would take care of it, who would keep it in the family. "That's bullshit," Michael's voice cut in. "Mom never said anything like that to me. She said we'd split everything equally." I tried to open my eyes, but my eyelids were so heavy. The voices continued, pulling me further toward consciousness, even as I wanted to retreat back into the darkness. "Equally doesn't mean fairly," Linda's voice said. I hadn't realized she was in the room. "Sarah, you make twice what Michael makes. You don't need the money as much as he does." "That's not how inheritance works," Sarah shot back. "Maybe it should be." Tom's voice joined the chorus. "And what about us? She said she was leaving us something too, but you three are getting the bulk of it. We're family too." "You're not her children," Rebecca said coldly. "No, but I'm her sister," Linda said, her voice rising. "I've been there for her." "You've been bleeding her dry for 10 years, Sarah interrupted. "Don't pretend this is about love." The words were like cold water, shocking me further toward consciousness. What was happening? Why were they fighting? "How dare you?" Linda gasped. "It's true, though, isn't it?" Michael said. "Aunt Linda, you've taken thousands from Mom over the years. Tens of thousands." "She offered. I never asked." "You didn't have to ask. You just made it clear you couldn't manage, and Mom felt obligated to help." "This is exactly what I'm talking about." Tom's voice rose above the others. "You kids think you're the only ones who matter. But she's my sister. I knew her before any of you were born." "And you've been taking advantage of her for just as long," Sarah said, her voice cutting. "I have not. The failed restaurant, the investment in that strip mall that never happened, the boat you just had to have. How much money did you burn through, Uncle Tom? 50,000? 100? The room erupted into chaos, everyone talking at once, voices overlapping in a cacophony of accusations and defenses. And slowly, painfully, I forced my eyes open. The room swam into focus, hospital ceiling, white walls, machines beeping beside me. And there, clustered around my bed, like vultures around carrion, was my family. Sarah stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed, face red with anger. Rebecca was to her right, hands on hips, equally furious. Michael stood off to the side, looking uncomfortable but defensive. Linda and Tom were near the door, both of them postured aggressively. None of them were looking at me, not one. They were so consumed by their argument that they hadn't noticed I was awake. I tried to speak, but my throat was too dry. I made a sound, just a croak, but it was enough. Sarah's eyes snapped to me. "Mom! You're awake!" Suddenly, all eyes were on me. The arguing stopped mid-sentence. "Oh, thank God," Rebecca breathed. They rushed to my bedside, all concerned now, all worried faces and gentle touches. "How do you feel?" Sarah asked, taking my hand. "Water," I managed to whisper. Michael grabbed a cup with a straw from the bedside table and held it to my lips. I sipped, the cold water soothing my raw throat. "You gave us such a scare," Linda said, her hand on my shoulder. I looked at each of them, these people I loved, these people I had just heard arguing over my possessions while I lay unconscious in a hospital bed. "How long?" I croaked. "The surgery took 4 hours," Sarah said. "It went well. The doctor said everything looks good. You've been in recovery for about an hour." An hour? I'd been out of surgery for an hour, and they were already fighting over my will. "You were arguing," I said, my voice getting stronger. The room fell silent. Guilty looks were exchanged. "You heard that?" Michael asked quietly. "All of it." More silence. Sarah's hand slipped from mine. "Mom, we were just," Rebecca started, "discussing my will," I finished for her, "while I was unconscious in a hospital bed, while you thought I couldn't hear you." "It wasn't like that," Linda said quickly. "What was it like then?" I asked, my voice steady now despite the pain medication making the world feel soft and disconnected. "Tell me, what was it like?" No one answered. I looked at Sarah. "You think I promised you the house?" She had the decency to look ashamed. "We talked about it a few times, about how I might buy out Michael and Rebecca's shares someday." "Talked about it, not promised." "I know, I just thought—" "You thought you deserved it more," I said flatly. She flinched. I turned to Rebecca. "And you? What was your argument?" Rebecca's face was red. "I just didn't think it was fair that Sarah assumed she'd get the house. We're supposed to split everything equally." "But you don't think that's fair either, do you? Because you think you need the money more?" She looked away. Michael was next. "And you. My son, who I spent years and thousands of dollars helping through addiction, helping rebuild your life. What were you fighting about?" "I just wanted my fair share," he said, his voice small. "I didn't mean—" "Your fair share of my money, before I'm even dead." The words hung in the air, heavy and damning. I looked at Linda. "You've been living off my charity for a decade, and you want to make sure you get your cut?" "That's not fair," she protested. "I never asked." "You didn't have to ask. You just made it clear you needed help, over and over. And I gave it to you because you're my sister and I love you." But apparently, that wasn't enough. Finally, I turned to Tom. "And you, my brother. How much money have I given you over the years? And you're in here arguing that you deserve more?" Tom at least had the grace to look truly ashamed. He opened his mouth, then closed it, saying nothing. I lay back against the pillows, suddenly exhausted. The pain medication was wearing off, and my abdomen throbbed where they'd cut into me. "I want you all to leave," I said quietly. "Mom, please," Sarah started. "Leave. Now. All of you." "But you just got out of surgery," Rebecca protested. "You shouldn't be alone." I laughed and it hurt. "I am alone. That's what you've all just shown me. I've been alone this whole time. I just didn't know it." "That's not true," Michael said, tears in his eyes. "We love you, Mom." "Do you?" Because what I just heard didn't sound like love. It sounded like greed. It sounded like people counting money that isn't theirs yet, dividing up the spoils before the body is cold. "We were just talking," Linda tried. "You were vultures," I said, my voice hard. "Standing around my bed, arguing over my bones. Get out, all of you." Sarah was crying now. "Mom, please, we're sorry. We weren't thinking." "You were thinking. That's the problem. You were thinking about money and houses and inheritance. You weren't thinking about me at all." I pushed the call button for the nurse. Within seconds, a young woman in scrubs appeared in the doorway. "Is everything all right?" she asked, looking at my family clustered around the bed. "I need them to leave," I said. "I'm tired, and I need to rest. They need to go." The nurse, bless her, didn't argue. You heard her. Family can come back during visiting hours tomorrow. Right now, the patient needs rest. They filed out slowly, each of them throwing backward glances at me. Sarah lingered at the door, mouthing, "I'm sorry," before the nurse gently ushered her out. And then I was alone. Truly alone. In a hospital room with machines beeping and pain radiating through my body and the sudden crushing weight of betrayal sitting on my chest. I closed my eyes and cried. Deep, wrenching sobs that hurt my incision and brought a different nurse running in to check on me. "Are you in pain?" she asked, her hand on my shoulder. "Yes," I whispered, but I wasn't talking about the surgery. They gave me more pain medication, and I drifted in and out of consciousness for the rest of the day. Every time I woke up, I remembered where I was and why, and the grief would wash over me again. My family. My beloved family. The people I had sacrificed for, supported, loved with everything I had. And the moment they thought I might be gone, they'd turned on each other like animals fighting over scraps. How long had they been thinking about it? Had they always seen me as a bank account with a heartbeat? Had every smile, every thank you, every "I love you" been calculated, an investment in future returns? The next morning, Sarah came back. She came alone during visiting hours, looking exhausted and red-eyed. "Please don't send me away," she said from the doorway. "I just need to talk to you." I didn't say anything, just watched her. She came in and sat in the chair beside my bed, not touching me. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she started, her voice thick with tears. "What you heard yesterday, it wasn't our finest moment. We were scared and stressed, and we weren't thinking." "You were thinking," I said. "You were thinking about my money." "No, I mean, yes, but—" She took a deep breath. "After they wheeled you into surgery, we all just sat in the waiting room. For 4 hours. And we were so scared, Mom. So terrified that something would go wrong. And I think we were talking about the will because it was easier than facing the possibility that you might die. So you discuss how to divide my assets instead of hoping I survive? It sounds awful when you put it that way." "Because it is awful." Sarah wiped her eyes. "You're right, it is. And I'm ashamed. We all are. But Mom, you have to understand. You raised us to think about these things. You've always been so practical, so organized. You talked about your will at dinner the night before your surgery. You made us think about the possibility of losing you, and I think we just couldn't handle it emotionally, so we made it practical instead." I wanted to believe her. God, how I wanted to believe that it was just fear and stress and terrible timing, but I had heard them. I had heard the tone, the arguments, the accusations. "You said you always intended for me to have the house," I said. "Did I ever say that?" Sarah hesitated. "Not in those exact words." "In any words?" "We talked about how I might want to buy it someday, about how I was the only one of us who could afford to maintain it. That's not the same as me promising it to you." "I know," she whispered. "I let myself believe something that wasn't true because I wanted it to be true." At least she was being honest now. "And the things you said about Linda and Tom," I continued, "about them taking advantage of me." Sarah's jaw tightened. "That part was true, Mom. I'm sorry, but it was. We've all watched them bleed you dry for years. We've watched you sacrifice for them while they contributed nothing. They're family. So are we, and you've sacrificed for us too. But we never assumed it was owed to us. We never acted like you were just an ATM." I didn't know what to say to that, because part of me wondered if maybe they had acted that way. Maybe I'd just been too blind to see it. "I need time," I finally said. "I need to think." Sarah nodded, standing up. "I understand. But Mom, please know that I love you. Not your money, not your house. You, my mother, the woman who raised me and supported me and showed me how to be strong. I love you, and I'm so, so sorry I made you doubt that." She left, and I was alone again with my thoughts and my pain and my grief. Over the next few days, they each came to apologize. Michael came with flowers and tears, explaining how scared he'd been, how he'd lashed out because he couldn't handle the possibility of losing me. Rebecca brought a card she'd made herself, covered in drawings and words of love, trying to explain away her behavior as stress and fear. Linda and Tom came together, both of them awkward and defensive, but attempting apologies. They didn't quite take responsibility, instead focusing on how it was a misunderstanding, how they'd never meant for me to hear, how it wasn't as bad as it sounded. I listened to all of them. I accepted their apologies with a nod, but I didn't forgive them, not yet. Maybe not ever, because here's what I realized lying in that hospital bed, recovering from surgery while my family scrambled to justify their behavior. Love doesn't wait until you're dead to show itself. Love doesn't turn into a fight over possessions the moment you close your eyes. Real love sits beside your bed and holds your hand and worries about whether you'll wake up. Real love doesn't care about inheritance or houses or money. Real love just wants you to be okay. And I don't know if my family ever really loved me that way, or if I'd just been useful to them. A source of support and money and security. A mother, a sister, a role to play rather than a person to cherish. I stayed in the hospital for 5 days. The surgery had been more complicated than expected, and they wanted to monitor me. During those 5 days, I had a lot of time to think. I thought about all the times I'd helped them, all the money I'd given, the support I'd offered, the sacrifices I'd made. I'd always believed I was building something, a strong family, a network of love and support. But maybe I'd just been enabling them. Maybe I'd taught them to depend on me financially rather than to love me fully. Or maybe they'd always been this way, and I'd been too caught up in playing the martyr to notice. On my 3rd day in the hospital, I asked the nurse to call my lawyer. He came that afternoon, a kind man named Richard, who had handled my legal affairs for years. I want to change my will, I told him. He pulled out a notepad. What changes did you want to make? I thought about it for a long moment. I could leave everything to charity out of spite. I could divide it differently, punish some and reward others. I could make them jump through hoops, create conditions they'd have to meet. But in the end, what would any of that accomplish? Revenge? What good was revenge when what I really wanted was to have never been betrayed in the first place? I want to leave the house to Emma, I finally said. My granddaughter. She's 18 now, away at college. The house goes to her when she graduates. Until then, it goes into a trust. Richard made notes. And your other assets? Split equally between my 3 children, but they don't get access to it until they're 55. Until then, it stays in a trust. They'll get an allowance from it if they need it for emergencies, but that's all. That's unusual, Richard said carefully. I know, but I want them to build their own lives. I want them to succeed or fail on their own merit, not on my money. Maybe if they have to wait, they'll appreciate it more. Or maybe they'll forget about it entirely and just focus on living. And your sister and brother? I hesitated. Linda gets $50,000. Tom gets $25,000. That's it. Richard wrote it all down. May I ask why the different amounts? Linda at least tried to build a life after her divorce. Tom just keeps expecting handouts. Maybe this will teach him that the bank is closed. Understood? Anything else? I thought about Emma. Sweet Emma, who had texted me every day since the surgery, asking how I was feeling. Who had sent me funny videos to cheer me up. Who had never once mentioned inheritance or money or anything except her love for her grandmother. The rest goes to Emma. Whatever's left after the others get their shares. She's the only one who deserves it. Richard finished writing and looked up at me. This is quite a departure from your previous will. I know. May I speak frankly? Please. Hurt feelings fade. Family relationships can be repaired. Are you sure you want to make permanent changes based on a temporary situation? I smiled bitterly. Is it temporary, or is this who they really are? And I just finally saw it. Richard didn't answer, which was answer enough. He left with the new will to be drawn up. I signed it 2 days later, with witnesses present to make sure it was all legal and binding. And then I went home. Sarah drove me, just like she'd driven me to the hospital. But this time, the silence wasn't comfortable. It was heavy with all the things we weren't saying. "Do you need help getting settled in?" she asked when we pulled into my driveway. "No, I'll be fine." "Mom, you just had major surgery. You need someone to help you." "I'll manage. At least let me get you inside." I didn't have the energy to argue, so I let her help me out of the car and into the house. She got me settled on the couch with pillows and blankets, brought me water and my medications, made sure my phone was within reach. "I'll come check on you tomorrow," she said. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. Because I'm your daughter, and I love you, and I'm not going to abandon you now." After she left, I sat in the silence of my house. This house that I'd worked so hard for, that I'd filled with love and memories and life. This house that my family had been fighting over before I was even dead. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like evidence, proof that I'd built my life on a foundation of sand. Over the next few weeks, they took turns coming to check on me, bringing meals, helping with laundry, making sure I was taking my medications. They were attentive and caring, and everything you'd want family to be. But I couldn't forget what I'd heard. Every kind gesture felt calculated. Every "I love you" sounded hollow. Michael brought groceries one afternoon and found me sitting at the kitchen table going through old photo albums. "Looking at memories?" he asked, setting the bags on the counter. "Trying to figure out if they were real," I said. He came over and looked at the photos. "What do you mean?" "I'm looking at all these pictures of us together, birthday parties, holidays, regular days. And I'm trying to figure out if you all really loved me or if you were just playing a part." "Mom," Michael said, his voice pained. "Of course we loved you. We still love you." "Do you? Or do you just love what I provide?" He pulled out a chair and sat down across from me. "I can't undo what happened. I can't take back what you heard. All I can do is tell you the truth now." "Which is?" "I was scared. When they took you into surgery, I thought I might lose you, and that terrified me. Not because of money or inheritance, but because you're my mom. You're the person who never gave up on me when I was at my worst. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." He reached across the table and took my hand. "Yeah, we talked about your will. And yeah, some of what was said was ugly. But Mom, we were sitting in that waiting room for 4 hours wondering if you were going to die. People don't think straight when they're scared. They say things they don't mean. They fight because fighting feels better than crying. You were fighting before I even woke up." "I know, and there's no excuse for that. But please don't let one awful moment erase all the real moments, all the love that is real." I wanted to believe him. I did. But trust, once broken, is so hard to repair. Emma came home from college for Thanksgiving. She burst into the house with her usual energy, hugging me tight and talking a mile a minute about her classes and her friends and life at school. She stayed for a week, and it was like a balm on my wounded soul. She helped me cook Thanksgiving dinner, and we invited everyone over. It was awkward, stilted, nothing like the easy warmth of past holidays. But we tried. On Emma's last night home, she came into my room and sat on the edge of my bed like she used to when she was little. "Grandma, can I ask you something?" "Of course, honey." "What happened? Between you and Mom and everyone?" I should have known she'd notice. Emma always noticed things. "We had a disagreement," I said carefully. "About what?" "About what matters most in a family." She was quiet for a moment, processing. "Mom won't tell me what happened, but she cries a lot, and you're different, sadder." "I'm okay, sweetheart. Are you?" "No." But I couldn't tell her that. "Families are complicated," I finally said. "Sometimes people disappoint you. Sometimes they show you sides of themselves you wish you hadn't seen." "Did they hurt you?" "Yes." "Are you going to forgive them?" "I don't know yet." Emma leaned her head on my shoulder. "I think you should. Life's too short to stay angry, even when people deserve it. When did you get so wise? I have a pretty great grandmother. I kissed the top of her head, and for the first time since the surgery, I felt something like peace. Christmas came, and I hosted like I always did. But this time, I didn't cook for days or decorate every room or put out all the good dishes. I ordered food from a restaurant, put up a small tree, kept everything simple. They all came. We exchanged gifts. We ate. We talked about surface things, weather, work, Emma's classes. Nobody mentioned the will. Nobody brought up the surgery. We all pretended that everything was normal, that nothing had changed. But everything had changed. It's been 6 months now since the surgery. I'm fully recovered physically. The doctors say I'm healing well, that the mass was benign just like they thought, that I should have many more years ahead of me. I don't know what those years will look like. I don't know if I'll ever trust my family the way I used to. I don't know if this wound will ever fully heal. But I do know some things now that I didn't know before. I know that I spent too many years defining my worth by how much I could give. I made myself indispensable, financially and emotionally, and then wondered why people treated me like a resource instead of a person. I know that real love isn't proved by how much you sacrifice. It's proved by how people treat you when you can't give them anything at all. I know that my family does love me, in their own complicated, flawed ways. But I also know that their love comes with conditions and calculations I never wanted to see, and I know that Emma, sweet Emma, loves me purely, without agenda or expectation. Just loves me because I'm her grandmother. That's why I left her the house. Not out of spite for the others, but because she deserves to have something built on a foundation of real, uncomplicated love. Last week, Sarah asked me if I'd changed my will. Why? I asked. Because I know you, Mom. I know how you think, and I know we hurt you badly enough that you probably made changes. Would it matter if I did? She thought about it for a long moment. It should matter, she said finally. It should matter because if you changed it, it means we broke something that can't be fixed. And that would be the real loss, not the money or the house. And if I did change it, then I'd have to accept that I deserve whatever consequences come from what I did, from what we all did. I looked at my oldest daughter, the one I'd been closest to, the one whose betrayal had cut the deepest. And I saw something I hadn't seen in months, genuine remorse. Not the performative apology of someone trying to get back in my good graces, but real, painful understanding of what had been lost. I did change it, I said. She nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. Can you tell me what you changed? No, but I can tell you why. Okay. Because I needed to know that you all could love me without expecting something in return. I needed to know that I was more than a bank account with a heartbeat, and the only way to know that was to take the immediate reward away. So we get nothing? I didn't say that, but what you get and when you get it, that's different now, and Emma gets something more. Sarah wiped her eyes. She deserves it. She's the only one of us who didn't mess this up. She's the only one who loved me without conditions. That's not fair, Mom. We do love you without conditions. Do you? Because what I heard that day sounded very conditional. Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that surprised me. You're right, and I think maybe we learned that from you. What? Mom, you taught us that love comes with obligations. That family means sacrifice. You gave and gave and gave, and we learned that's what family does. We learned that there's always a ledger, always a keeping track. You helped me through my divorce, so I owe you. You paid for Rebecca's college, so she owes you. You got Michael through rehab, so he owes you. I never said any of you owed me anything. You didn't have to say it. It was implicit in everything you did. Every sacrifice came with the unspoken weight of debt. And maybe that's why we were so focused on the will, because we'd been watching that ledger our whole lives, wondering what the final accounting would be. Her words hit me like a physical blow, because she was right. I had kept score, even if I'd never admitted it. Every time I helped one of them, There was a part of me that filed it away. Proof of my goodness. Evidence of my worth. Insurance that they would love me because I'd earned it. I had taught them that love was transactional, and then I was hurt when they treated it like a transaction. "Oh, God," I whispered. "What have I done?" Sarah reached across and took my hand. "You loved us the best way you knew how. But maybe it's time we all learned a different way. How do we do that? I don't know, but maybe we start by being honest. Really honest." So we talked. Really talked, for the first time in months. About the patterns we'd fallen into, the expectations we'd built, the ways we'd all contributed to this dysfunction. And slowly, painfully, something started to shift. Over the next few months, I called a family meeting. Everyone came, my 3 children, Linda, Tom. We sat in my living room, the tension thick enough to cut. "I asked you all here because we need to talk about what happened," I started. "Really talk about it, not just apologize and move on." They exchanged nervous glances. "I heard what you said in the hospital, and it broke my heart. But I've spent 6 months thinking about it, and I realize now that I played a role in creating the situation that led to that moment." "Mom, you didn't—" Michael started. "Let me finish. I spent decades teaching you all that love means sacrifice, that being family means giving until it hurts. And I kept score, even though I pretended I didn't. Every time I helped one of you, there was a part of me that was building a case for why I deserved your love." I looked around the room at their faces, shocked, uncomfortable, some nodding in recognition. I made you all dependent on me, financially and emotionally. And then I was hurt when you saw me as a source of support rather than just a person. But I taught you to see me that way." "That doesn't excuse what we did," Sarah said. "No, it doesn't. But it explains it. We all participated in creating a dynamic where love was measured by what we could give or get. And that's not real love. That's not what I want for this family anymore." "What do you want?" Rebecca asked quietly. "I want us to start over. I want us to build relationships based on actual connection, not obligation or expectation. I want you all to succeed or fail on your own merit, not because of my money. And I want to know that you love me because of who I am, not what I can provide." "We do love you," Michael said. "Maybe we showed it wrong. Maybe we took you for granted. But we do love you, Mom." "I believe you. But I also think we all need to learn how to love each other better." Tom spoke up for the first time. "So what does this mean? Are you cutting us all off?" I smiled sadly. "That's exactly the kind of question I'm talking about, Tom. Your first concern is the money." He had the grace to look ashamed. "I'm not cutting anyone off. But I'm changing the way I engage with all of you. No more bailing people out of problems they created. No more enabling dependency. If you need help, real help, I'll be there. But I'm not going to be the bank anymore." "Fair enough," Tom said, though he didn't look happy about it. "And I've changed my will in ways that reflect what I want for this family. Emma gets the house because she's young enough that it will help her build a life, and because she never treated me like an ATM. The rest of you will get your inheritance, but not until you're older, until you've had time to build your own lives." I watched their reactions. Disappointment, yes, but also something else. Relief, maybe. Like I'd released them from an obligation they didn't know how to fulfill. "I can live with that," Sarah said, "as long as I still have you." "You do? You all do. But on different terms now." Linda started crying. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I did take advantage of you. I let you support me because it was easier than supporting myself." "I know. But that ends now. You have a job. You have skills. It's time you learned to stand on your own." She nodded, still crying. We talked for hours that day. Some of it was painful. Some of it was healing. By the end, nothing was resolved, but everything had been said. That was a year ago. Since then, things have been different. Better in some ways, harder in others. Sarah and I have coffee every Sunday morning. Just the two of us, talking about real things, not surface pleasantries. We're rebuilding trust slowly. Michael has been promoted at work twice. He's proud of himself in a way he never was when I was supplementing his income. He still struggles sometimes, but he's handling it himself, and it's making him stronger. Rebecca started therapy to work through her relationship with money and self-worth. She's beginning to understand that her value isn't tied to what she owns or what I can give her. Linda got a better job and moved into her own apartment without my help. She's proud of herself, and so am I. Tom still asks for money sometimes. I say no now. It's hard, but necessary. He's starting to figure things out, slowly. And Emma graduated college last month. I went to her ceremony and cried with pride. She doesn't know yet that the house will be hers someday. I'll tell her when she's ready. As for me, I'm learning to love differently. Learning that sacrifice isn't the same as love. Learning that I don't have to earn affection by giving until I'm empty. I'm learning to say no. Learning to have boundaries. Learning to let people fail and struggle, because that's how they grow. And I'm learning to accept love that doesn't come with a price tag. Last week, on the anniversary of my surgery, my kids threw me a party. Nothing fancy, just dinner at Sarah's house with everyone together. There were no expensive gifts. Just simple things. A book Rebecca thought I'd like. A scarf Michael picked out. A photo album Sarah made of our family over the years. And Emma gave me a letter. I read it later, alone in my bedroom. "Grandma," it said, "I don't know what happened that made you sad this past year, but I know you've been carrying something heavy. I want you to know that you don't have to carry it alone, and you don't have to be anything but yourself for me to love you. You're not what you give or what you do. You're just you, and that's enough. That's always been enough." I cried reading those words, because that's what I'd been searching for all along. Not gratitude for my sacrifices, not acknowledgement of what I'd given up. Just the simple truth that I was enough, exactly as I was. I don't know if my family will ever be what it was before the surgery. That innocent trust is gone, broken by what I heard and what we've learned about ourselves since then. But maybe it can be something better, something more honest, something built on real connection rather than obligation and debt. I'm not there yet. We're not there yet. But we're trying. And maybe that's all any family can really do. Keep trying. Keep showing up. Keep choosing love, even when it's hard and complicated and messy. I still have days when I'm angry. Days when I remember standing in that hospital room and hearing them argue over my possessions. Days when the betrayal feels fresh and raw. But I also have days when Sarah says something that makes me laugh until I cry. Days when Michael texts me just to tell me he's thinking of me. Days when Rebecca sends me articles she knows I'll find interesting. Days when Emma calls just to chat about nothing in particular. On those days, I remember that people are complicated, that we all fail each other sometimes, that love is not a feeling, but a choice we make over and over, even when it's difficult. The house is still mine. I'm still here, alive and recovering and learning. And my family is still here too, flawed and human and trying. That's not the ending I imagined when they wheeled me into surgery. But maybe it's a better one. Because I'm not waiting to die for my family to show me love. I'm demanding it now, in life, in honest and imperfect ways. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, they're learning how to give it. Not for inheritance or obligation or because they owe me, but because they're choosing to. Because despite everything, despite the hurt and the mistakes and the ugly truths we've all had to face, they love me. And I'm learning to believe that again. Not the blind belief I had before, built on denial and wishful thinking, but a harder, wiser belief. One that acknowledges the flaws and loves anyway. One that knows people can hurt you and still be worth keeping. One that understands that real family isn't perfect people who never fail you. It's imperfect people who keep showing up even after they do. I woke up from surgery to find my family arguing over my will. But I also woke up. And that, in the end, is what matters most.